UI UX designer is different from a product designer when it comes to rolling out products into the market. Hey guys, so I got a couple of questions from people. Why hire a product designer instead of a UI UX designer? In the industry, the roles are almost the same thing. You could see the resume of a product designer almost similar to that of a UI UX designer. You could also see the experience level of both a UI UX designer and a product designer similar. You could also see in job requirements from people who want to hire designers that the job roles are almost the same thing. So what is actually the difference between a product designer and a UI UX designer? The roles are kind of similar, but they're actually different. I'll tell you why they are different. A product designer is generally involved in the entire design process of a product. Emphasis on the design process, which ranges from the user research, the user experience, the user interface and interaction, the product experience itself, the brainstorming sessions. All of these are like the roles of a product designer. While a UX designer is actually concerned on making your product easy, beautiful, seamless, easy to navigate by user. Please note that all of the opinions in this video are based off of my experience in the industry as a product manager. Here is another difference also between a product designer and a UI UX designer. You can give just an idea to a product designer, but you can't give just an idea to a UI UX designer. A product designer would fly with just verbal communication or conversations that you talked about your product and all of that. A UI UX designer needs a PRD or an SRS. PRD is product requirement document or software requirement specifications to actually help you with your product. So this is another difference between a product designer and a UI UX designer. Also, a product designer has an overall understanding of how your product should work in the market, not just the design experience of your product. But a UI UX designer is actually interested in just the aesthetics of your product and the user journey and user interaction of your product. Another difference is the experience. A product designer will typically be somebody that has experience in UI UX design before transitioning into product design. But you can't see a product designer who is transitioning into being a UI UX designer. So I would say a UI UX designer transitions into being a product designer, not a product designer transitioning into being a UI UX designer, because a product designer already has prior experience in UI UX. Also, a product designer is more involved in your product than a UI UX designer. Why do I say so? Because the overall goal of the product is to sell in the market. But for a designer, a UX designer, the overall goal of a UX designer is for the product to look aesthetically pleasing to the users. Now let me talk about the similarities between a product designer and a UI UX designer. Both of the skill sets are the same. All of them are very good in prototyping, wireframing, user flows, user personas, and all of that. You typically see a product designer also doing the same role or also doing the same thing that a UI UX designer does. There are still a lot of differences between the both of them and a lot of similarities between the both of them. Now, what should you do if you have a product that you want to hire a designer for? If you've done your homework well, you can hire a UI UX designer. If you have not done your homework well, which includes drawing out a lot of possible scenarios on how that product would fail and the different reasons why the product would not sell, then you need to hire a product designer, because a product designer will be more involved in selling your product than a UI UX designer. A UI UX designer is just involved in making the market accept your product. That is it. But a product designer would know that if this product fails, it's both on him and on you. This is also another thing. Now, based on how well you've documented your products or your idea that you want to build, you now know who to hire: a product designer or a UI UX designer. Like, share, subscribe, guys.